Steps to Indian independence. Step 1. Be ruled by the British Empire. India was ruled by the British Empire starting in 1600, when the charter was granted for the East India Trading Company. What began as a trading company eventually turned into imperial rule of India. So make sure you pay attention to this date, 1600. That is when the British Empire started to use India as a trading company, but eventually basically turned it into a colony. So they really just first wanted it as a place to trade goods and make goods and trade them from India to China to Africa, all over the world, but then turned into a colony and began to rule that colony. By 1800, the Indians were fed up with it. They wanted the British out. It only took about 200 years from when they took over the colony to the time where they were fed up. The best jobs and education were given to the British citizens in India. Indian business owners and craftsmen were not allowed to run their businesses if that meant competition for the British. So Indians felt like second-class citizens in their own country, second to the British, because the British got the best education, they got better jobs, better money, and then if you had a business that competed with the British, you could not have that business anymore. So for example, if you had a business that made a type of shoe, and that was your business, but the British had another company or business that made that same type of shoe, you could not have your business anymore because you competed with the British. So they would shut your business down. So you can see why some of the Indians began to feel fed up with the British. Here are some pictures to look at. We have the British flag and the Indian flag here. We actually have a photograph down here of a British family in India. Notice we have the dad, the mom, and the baby. And notice the servants around them are all Indian. So we have the British family and all the people working for them were Indians. Even though this was in India, they were second-class citizens to the white British people. Over here we have a painting, kind of shows the clash between the British and the Indians, how different they were. You can even see how their body language toward each other doesn't look like they're having a very good conversation. Step 2. Create the Muslim League and the National Congress. The first two groups to work for the rights of Indians were the Muslim League, started in 1885, and the National Congress, started in 1906. The Muslim League attracted many Muslim Indians. Remember that Muslim people practice the Islam religion. The National Congress had mostly Hindu Indian members. Remember that Hindu people practice the Hinduism religion. Both groups worked towards Indian independence from the British control. So both groups were trying to get out from British control, trying to get independence. Both groups were groups of Indians. The only difference is that they were different religions. Some of them were Muslim, some of them were Hindu, but everything else was pretty much the same. Here are some pictures. We have the Indian National Congress. Remember, these are the Hindu Indians. And we have the Muslim League over here. Remember, these are the Muslim Indians, both working towards independence, both Indian citizens, only difference, religion. Step 3, begin to protest, the Rowlatt Act. During World War II, which is 1914, many of the Indians joined forces with the British, thinking they would be rewarded with more control in their country. So many of these Indians volunteered to go fight with the British, thinking that they would be rewarded, get more freedom, if they would fight with the British. The British even promised that after the war ended, India would be able to work towards self-government. So the British even told these Indian citizens, hey, we'll give you some more freedom if you come fight with us. Unfortunately, it didn't happen. After the war, nothing changed. People began to protest. They were promised something, they didn't get it. The Rowlatt Act made it so much worse. The Rowlatt Act passed in 1919, made the situation worse. This act gave the British the power to send Indians to jail for up to 2 years without trial. So as these people began to protest, began to speak out, they would throw them in jail, and they could sit there for up to 2 years without any chance of getting out, without any bail, any trial, unfairly held in a jail.
often does beget violence. But a rebellion need not rely on guns to be successful, as Gandhi proved during his Salt March, the most peaceful rebellion. The sea, the abundant, free resource at land's end. Among its potential gifts, untold quantities of salt, waiting to be distilled. But for the poor of India in the early 20th century, even this basic necessity of life, salt, was not a given. It was being heavily taxed by their British rulers. Indians could even be thrown in jail for just making or selling this vital preservative. In 1930, Mahatma Gandhi saw this injustice as a perfect opportunity to practice the kind of passive resistance he called satyagraha.
By satyagraha, Gandhi meant truth force. He meant mobilizing the power of truth. So in other words, he had to find a way in which the people would free themselves, yet wasn't violent.
On March 12th, the 61-year-old Gandhi set out with 78 followers on a 240-mile trek to the sea. For 23 days, they marched. Thousands upon thousands of his countrymen joining along the way. The throng of protesters reached over 2 miles.
Ultimately, then, you reach the sea, and what's he going to do? He's going to break the law. And sure enough, they go down, and with this wonderful simplicity, they make salt. The law's been broken. Wait a second, you mean British law can be defied? Yes.
Soon, people all over India were making their own salt. The authorities responded by imprisoning over 60,000 Indians for this illegal activity, including Gandhi himself. But that too was part of his plan to make the world aware of British oppression.